name is John. You're watching the Strix YouTube channel, and I'm again joined by co-founder Devere. And we're talking through early days, behind the scenes, really building Strix. And so this is the fourth video. We're going to talk about the formulation of the product, the shades, and just getting the product right after going through the process of designing and manufacturing the product itself. Then you gotta have a great product that's effective as well. So Devere, which products did you use before the Strix concealer to really figure out which direction you wanted to go?
So we I think I bought like everything on the market. We were testing all the different formulations because a very helpful thing in manufacturing is if you can come up with like a like as they call it, right? So you can show them and say like, hey, look, this formulation for a concealer is really great. Like, let's see if we can get as close to this as possible, but let's tweak this and this specific points to make it a little better for our purposes. And that was pretty much exactly how we did it. So we were testing all the top of the line women's concealers, the couple that were available for men. You know, I remember we definitely tested the Tom Ford one, which is basically the same thing for the women and the men. You know, and then we went to the manufacturer. We worked with actually 2 professional makeup artists that are still on our team to this day, actually. And we were testing them. So it was like, I'm going to be exactly the sort of guy that's going to be using these products. Do I like them? Do they work well on my skin? And again, we did this for the concealer and the tinted moisturizer. We actually had planned on also launching with a third product, which we'll get to in a minute or two. Yeah, so it was basically like, you know, taking the formulations and then just adjusting them. So we have this great lab in Korea that does all the formulations. Korean skincare and cosmetics are like second to none. And so we went through dozens of back and forths and refinements until we got to things we were happy with. And they all kind of look like, you know, this. It's just like a regular, you know, stick concealer, and you would test it here. And then once you get to the formulation that you liked, then they would fill it in the actual packaging that you're using. Same thing, the tinted moisturizer, I remember, came in all these little cute bottles here. You know, so we came up with the different shades and whatnot. And again, that's basically the idea. So it's also a little bit difficult to always get a sense of like what the actual final product is going to look like because of how the samples come. It's always like a totally different packaging and whatever it is. And again, this is why these processes take so long, is because even once you arrive at a concealer formulation that you want, well, now you need to go and make sure that it works in the packaging that you have. So that goes through a couple of tests, and then it has to go through stability tests to make sure that it doesn't, you know, leak out after 3 months or something like that. So they have all these special lab processes they can do that like expedite what it would be as if it was sitting out on a bathroom counter for a year or something like that. And so, yeah, so I mentioned also, like, to that point, we had wanted to launch with a third product, a lip balm, which again, teaser, will be coming out soon enough. Yeah, so that we have a great formulation for that as well. This is an early prototype of the product. You know, opens up like this, and you know, you can see that great formulation there. You know, you'll be hearing more about it soon, but yeah, so, and again, and we didn't end up doing that just because at the time it was too much additional effort, too much additional money also to put into, and we just wanted to launch already. So it's coming soon.
Well, something that you took into account too, what I only learned later on, is that because the tinted moisturizer is a liquid and the concealer is a cream, there's a lot of attention paid to the way that they interact with each other, so that you could then use the tinted moisturizer as a base and then use the concealer on top of that in conjunction with each other.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was like a big thing for having the makeup artists on board, because it's not something I never would have thought of, but yeah, like when you're putting on the concealer versus the tinted moisturizer, you're using a tiny bit and you're using it over your whole face, whereas the concealer, you're using a tiny bit just in one place. So you want to make sure that the tinted moisturizer matches the shade of the concealer when it's fully sheared out, right? So you want to make sure that if you're putting the tinted moisturizer all over your face and then you spot treat, you know, certain areas with the concealer, that the concealer shade is then going to match how the tinted moisturizer sheared out. So, I mean, to this day, we get customers emailing that are like, oh my gosh, I got the light moisturizer and the concealer, and the light moisturizer is so much darker than the concealer. And it's like, it looks like that, but that's very intentional, because when you actually put it on your face and rub it in, you'll see that it's a perfect match. And yeah, we went back and forth so many times until we got that down. So we're pretty happy with the way that is as well. For me, looking at women's brands like, yeah, I don't want to call any out in particular, but there are 40 shades, sometimes 50 shades. You're talking about undertones, the color of your veins, how all these things interact. And it's like, for a guy getting into this world, period, is a little overwhelming. And then to offer him 10 shades to choose from, there's no way that he's going to feel confident he's getting the right shade for him. And so instead, and again, with the guidance of our makeup artists, we really felt that 3 shades is like the perfect sweet spot to cover a majority of skin tones. You know, we're talking into the 90% of skin tones, but admittedly not every skin tone, but really most of them. But also still not have that kind of overwhelm factor of like, well, which shade am I? And the big way that we did that is we really spent a lot of time making these formulations adaptable. So they kind of like blend into your skin no matter what. So like for me personally, I can use the light concealer or the medium concealer, and they both work out fine for my face. And a lot of guys find the same thing, that use a little bit more, it'll be darker, use a little bit less, it'll be lighter, rub it in a bit more, it'll be more absorbed, leave it a bit less rubbed in, it'll be less so. And so we really worked hard on making the formulations adaptable like that, so that you don't even, like, it's 100%, like, you know what side of the spectrum you fall on, and then it's kind of like a 50-50 shot. And either way, you're gonna most likely end up getting the shade that's right for you. Our product return rate is like super low. Less than 1% of guys are returning the products because the shade doesn't work out. So, you know, we think we're onto something here. Yeah, for sure. And that was my experience too. I mean, I had never used a product, but then the ease of use was a big thing. And so very good consideration. So now we've talked about the process, the concept to packaging and everything. In the next video, we're going to talk about launching the product itself, designing the website, and getting all of those parts of the process done. And so join us in our next video. We'll link to previous videos down in the description over on the playlist as well. And that is Strix, you more handsome.